laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Yo, hi, beautiful people. Today's Monday, June 8th. And June has been a really long month already, but we're rolling with it. And if you've never been here before, my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I have this podcast that I started almost a couple of years ago called Celeste, the Therapist Podcast. And on it, I talk to people that are doing things to empower the lives of others by kind of sharing their story. One of the things I also do is I talk about relationships. I enjoy talking about relationships. I enjoy helping people get clarity around their relationships. And now I have a special co-host that will always be with me. And since he's my special co-host, I'm just going to add him to the stream because he's special. And he's special in more ways than one. Would you say that's accurate, Jeff? That you're special?
I've been called special many times as a motorcycle does donuts around my house just right when you intro me. I don't know if y'all could hear that.
I totally heard it, and I said, you're a podcaster guy. Why would you allow all that noise to happen when you know we're recording?
Right, and you'd be right about that. But I mean, I could go outside and just, I don't know, threaten. Is right now the time to go outside and threaten people?
It's really not the time. Because it's not the time. There's a lot of emotions happening, so we just gotta roll with it. We're gonna roll with it.
Right. Well,
hey, Todd. So can you introduce yourself to my audience, please, for people that don't know?
For the people that don't know, my name's Jeff Gray, nicknamed the Professor. And they call me that because I think I know everything. And so I'm the perfect person to help Celeste fix your relationship.
Mm-hmm. And so he says he thinks he knows everything, but I would consider you very highly intelligent. Would you? Because I know you don't really like.
I agree?
Yeah. Would you agree?
I prefer to let others gas me, so I will. So please continue.
Hey, Beth. And so he is thebomb.com. You think or do you know everything, Todd says? Which one is it?
Well, we'll find out today, Todd. Write in about your relationships, and if I fix it, and I guess we know.
So anytime Jeff comes on, we are going to be answering questions about your relationship. So I have a couple of questions that were asked, but also feel free if you want to ask the questions in the comments. And so we're going to, and the questions that I get are typical questions that people have in their relationships. So I'm glad that I have you to help me with this process. All right. So my first question, and Jeff doesn't know the questions. He said, that's fine. Just tell me on the show. We'll figure it out together. So this first question, I am white. How should I approach a conversation about race and racism with my partner? Are there certain questions I should ask or not ask? So I don't know the gender or anything. I just know that one partner is not white. Yeah.
Do we even know that? Did it say that?
Actually, it didn't say that. You're right. That was my. Oh no, it does. It does. It says I am white. Oh, it doesn't say what color their partner is.
Right. Yay. But I'm gonna make. So here's what knowing everything does for you. I'll make two inferences. Thing number one, if they were white talking to another white person, would they say that? Maybe not. And thing number two, if they listen to Celeste the Therapist podcast, I think the chances go way up that somebody's black in the relationship. That's what I think.
I got a lot of white listeners now.
Hey, all right, all therapists.
Yeah, everybody rocks with me. Everybody rocks with me.
So, how do you approach it? Well, I think that there's not a one size fits all like a script, right? Mm-hmm. What's most important is that it's a check-in, right? What's the goal? Is the goal here to find out how they're feeling? Then you could ask something like, "Man, a lot of crazy stuff's happening right now. How are you feeling?" Mm-hmm. If the goal is to prove that you're one of the good ones, you're already starting off on the wrong foot, right? Because the hope is that by asking, "Hey, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? What does this bring out?" is there anything that you want to ask me? Basically, by making it clear that this is a space where we can talk about things, doesn't it make sense that then it would help your relationship, but also it does have the byproduct of kind of making you one of the good ones. You know what I mean?
Making you one of the good ones.
One of the good ones. So a lot of times, so there's a phrase people use called virtue signaling, right? So we all know this idea that you're talking about food, and then someone goes, well, I'm a vegetarian. And you can feel that they're kind of happy to tell you that. Not being a vegetarian, but you know that they're happy. Then a third person chimes in, vegetarian, oh, that's nice. I used to be vegetarian, but now I'm a vegan. I don't eat anything that ever grew. And then someone else says, oh, well, I'm a freegan. I only eat air. And they're competing to see who's superior, right? And so in that same way, there's a lot of opportunity to do that with race too, right? Where you say, it used to be, oh, I don't see color, which is simply not possible. And then it turns to oh, well, I use all the right words. And I say person of color when I used to say African American. But then before that, I said Afro-American. Before that, I said Negro. Before that, I said colored. But those signals are not the point. If the point is in your relationship to check in with your partner, then you literally just say, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
What do you think of all this? What's your opinions of all this? What's your opinion? Have I ever made you feel this way? Or did you know, or being willing to share, sometimes I've worried about X or Y, or, my cousin, my dad's never said anything like this, but my uncle twice, he said that he doesn't like darkies. And you go it's like you're trying to get to a higher level of understanding. That's what I think. What do you think, Celeste?
So I agree with you. And I think the fact that this person is even questioning how to approach it shows that they are really being considerate. I'm big on having open lines of communication, even when it's hard. And I know, a lot of people have heard from Black people, listen, white people, don't ask me how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. So that could send a mixed message. I think if you're in a relationship, an interracial relationship, it's okay to have those conversations because this is your partner. And so I think it's important because we don't want to be just trying to figure it out in our head, because that's a dangerous place to live, because it can grow into something bigger than what it needs to be, right?
Right. And that the difference is, so there's definitely a phenomenon of you're Black and you just get a random email from a white person you haven't seen since 6th grade saying, Celeste, how are you? But in reality, they're they don't know what to do. They know they don't want to be on the side of beating people in the street. So then they reach out to the Black person that they know and kind of say oh, I've done my good deed. Right. I reached out to Celeste. She's the only Black person I know. Right. And so it's so superficial and so clearly on the signaling side and the guilt assuaging side that I think it does. It's more likely to do harm than good. But with your partner, with whom you're supposed to have the most intimate bond that you have in the world, that's different. Where you say, look, you can talk to me about this for real. I want to talk to you about it for real. We're an interracial couple, so we need to. We're going to have to address this. If it's not clear to people, I'm mulatto, my mother's white, my dad's Black. It comes up a lot, right? It comes up for me because of how I look and how I am, but it comes up for them classically in their life. They got together in 1968, so it was different, but the idea holds. You're not going to be able to somehow be an interracial couple and not be able to talk about it. So you just have to make it clear, I'm being proactive. I want to talk about this, and I want to be here for you.
Yes, I love it. I have an audience question, and then I got another question after that. So why do I keep attracting narcissistic men after I got out of a relationship with one 5 years ago? So it sounds like she got out of a relationship 5 years ago with somebody that was narcissistic, and she finds herself feeling like she's attracting that type of person again.
That's a good question. You want to go first, Celeste, or me?
I'll let you go first.
All right. So you're a woman, okay? You said you use the phrase, "Why do I keep attracting narcissistic men?" But I'm going to make a wager and say that as a woman, I hear women are getting hollered at in the street and stuff like that. You're attracting all types of men, and then you are the screener. You're the one who chooses who stays on hold and who gets on the phone, right? So the question to ask is, why do I keep answering the phone for narcissistic men, whereas I keep other men on hold? Because I'm gonna make the assumption that more than just those guys are the ones reaching out to you. It's a good assumption. Men are out here trying in general. Men are trying to make it happen. So then the question is, what is it that you look for or notice, right? What is it that you're putting off, or that fits you like you're the lock, and narcissism is the key. There's something called the dark triad of traits, right? Celeste, have you heard of this?
No, you
Dark
talked
triad?
to me about it a little bit, but go ahead and explain it.
It's what's it? Machiavellianism. I think it's sociopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism. So these traits of Machiavellianism is like people that plot and plan and connive, right? Like they make moves and they're slick in that way, right? Sociopathy, right? Low positive emotion, right? Towards others, right? They don't feel a lot of warmth towards others. And narcissism, like you said, putting themselves first. There's something about that I would guess, Kiara, there's something about that makes you say like, I don't know, this person, it triggers your potential mate alarm, right? Because those traits aren't common. When I say they're not common, most people don't have them.
Right.
I don't mean no one, it might be 5% of people have them. So if you end up with someone who's as rare as 5% again and again and again, it's not them. There's a phrase, you meet an asshole in the morning, you met an asshole. You meet assholes all day, you're the asshole. You see what I'm saying? So in the same way, the question that you have to ask yourself is, what is it about me that consistently screens for one type? Because dudes, a broad assortment of dudes are likely interested in you. What do you think?
So I love that. And like, whether we're talking about narcissism for people listening or any other trait where you find yourself continuing to attract that same type of partner in your life, I think that rings true for across the board. And it's really about, and I don't know if she realizes this, but it says, why do I keep attracting, right? And so it's like a choice. And a lot of times we don't realize we have a choice. We feel like we just fall into a situation or relationship where we're not just following into it. It's a choice to do. If we're talking about, in America, being an adult, we all make these choices in relationships, and a lot of it has to do with what's inside. So if inside I don't really treat myself well, or if I'm always a giver, I never receive, I'm going to get into these relationships where I'm able to just give, but then I'm not feeling satisfied. And so that's just one example on how what is inside can be, is what you're attracting. That's what you're attracted to, believe it or not. It's like a hard reality, because there's sometimes people will get into good relationships, and because they're not good to themselves, they actually aren't content in those good relationships.
Right. It's oftentimes, you're shaped by the people around you, and you shape them kind of the way that waves shape like a rocky cliff, right? So maybe they eat a hole in you, or you know what I mean, to where only certain thing can reach you. Do you know what I mean? And so you might be, one thing might be, Celeste framed it in a very positive way, which is her gift. It's like, oh, you're a giver. But another way to look at that is I only like to be in relationships where I'm the more valuable one, right? So then people go, how do I end up with these losers again and again? Oh, well, what it is when you meet someone who's self-sufficient, you feel insecure, because how are they going to need me? I need a guy who's out on parole, can't get a job, and he needs me so bad that I have power. That makes me feel comfortable. But people will frame that as, my toxic trait is that I give too much. No, your toxic trait is that you can't be with an equal, because if you're with an equal, you feel threatened. So you got to look at the hard mirror. I'm not attacking you, Kara, because I got this. I had to dig out from my own one of this. This ain't what this show is about. But I had for years, because I like to talk and argue and banter, I felt like I really get attracted to a woman who's like my match in that way, right? So that what happens is, early on, it's fun. Like, oh, we like to play fight verbally. By the end of it, it's like, my God, these people can't even decide on what to have for breakfast, right? I'm selecting for women that are disagreeable because I'm disagreeable. Then in a year, I go, why am I unhappy? Oh, because every single thing is a war. So I had to undo that myself and say, look, man, I got to find somebody more magnanimous than me. rather than going with my instinct. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yes, Todd. So when you think about that, right, when you think about how people are actually asking for it, or that's what they're wanting, but not, I don't think it's a conscious thing. No one consciously said, I want to date somebody that's out on parole, have 4 baby mamas and a nice Beamer, right? But don't have a pot to piss in. Like, nobody says those things, but how is it that people end up continue falling in that trap?
Right.
Trap, actually, I think I might have I said a trap, but I don't think it's a trap, right?
Right, because trap sounds like someone's doing it to you. It's more like, why do I keep on laying down and closing this bear trap on my own leg? Because it's you choosing it. You know what I mean? The easy way to look at it, you would never say, like, listen, I live in Boston. My last boyfriend was an Aborigine, and my last 6 boyfriends before that were Australian Aborigines. Why do the Aborigines seek me? I say, there's no Aborigines in Boston. It's clearly you seeking Aborigines. Clearly you.
So somebody has to just sit with themselves and get real in order to figure out exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times getting real requires us to be vulnerable, and it requires us to pull our egos to the side to realize, like, actually, I'm the common denominator.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to level up, that's what you got to do, or you'll just be doomed to repeat this over and over forever.
Abso-freaking-lutely. All right, let me get to my next question. If you guys have a question, you can ask the question in the comments. I got some that was sent to me. So let's get to this next question. All right. So I have been struggling with my girlfriend during the quarantine, and I think I want out of the relationship. I am not sure how to have this conversation with her. I am not sure if it's me or her.
What do you think, Celeste?
So, when I think about the quarantine, I think about the fact that a lot of people have been forced to sit with themselves in relationships. And one of the things outside of, like, mental health, I knew that was going to be a struggle. I knew relationships was going to struggle because so many people they were always kind of doing their own thing. So they never really seen, like, how much their relationship may have been toxic or how much it has struggled. And I think that with the quarantine, a lot was exposed, whether it was individually or in your relationship. So for this specific question around, I don't know if it's me or the relationship, I think that could be true. Like, I think you would have to sit with yourself and really do some inventory on, like, what is it that you want in a partner? Is this partner fulfilling my needs? How do we work together? And sit with yourself. I would say sit with yourself before coming with your partner, so that you're not all over the place. Because it sounds like, and even in the question, that you're not really sure about what it is that you feel the issue is. Right. Curious to hear about what you think.
Yeah, well, I've been struggling with my girlfriend during the quarantine. I think I want out of the relationship. So that means, like, I'm ready to quit, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to have this conversation with her. We'll get to that last. I'm not sure if it's me or her. Well, if you really want to quit, then does it matter whether it's you or her? Do you get what I mean? Like, if you're to the point where it's over to you, then it doesn't matter. Or are you saying, I'm not sure if it's me or her, meaning if it's me, then I would like to change it and stay, which is 2 different questions. So you decide that in kind of reverse order how you pose it. First of all, is there something I can change to fix this, change about myself? If there is, am I willing to change it? If I am, change it and stay. If I'm not, then even if it's me, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right? Every relationship ain't forever, but you gotta decide that. If it's her, you can pose it to her and say, "Hey, man, I really hate the way you sip your coffee. It's just so loud, and I just can't even concentrate." And either she changes it or she goes, "I like how I sip coffee. It's the best part of my day." And if she says that, then all right, then we break up. The phrase "all's fair in love and war," right? What that really means is, in terms of all's fair in love, it's like, if you want to break up with somebody because you just hate their left nostril, That's valid.
Yeah.
You don't got to be with whoever, you know what I mean? Like you can break up with somebody for something that you can't fire them for at a job.
Yeah, and even though Jeff is being funny by saying left nostril, one of the things, I know this isn't part of the question, but one of the things people struggle with is feeling like they need a reason. Like they could just be not happy with the relationship. It's not what they wanted, but there's no like overt tangible thing to name. And so one of the things that is the reality is that sometimes relationships dismantle. And I feel like you do yourself a disservice by staying just for the sake of staying.
Yeah. If it ain't working, it ain't working. But that don't mean always break up every time someone makes you mad for one day. But you
Right.
stated right. If you walked into your boss and said, "Look, I quit," and then you said, "I don't know if it's me or you, and who should work on what." Once you quit, you quit. Ain't no one fixing nothing. I'm posting on monster.com and trying to replace you. So that's what you need to decide. If it's you, if you can find something to change about yourself, change that and see if that fixes it. If you can't, if you find something you say, nope, all the changing should be done by her, which is not always like that sometimes is the sign of someone who doesn't have insight, but sometimes it just be true. Sometimes you're the good player and they're the bad player. And you just say, hey, you willing to change this thing? And if they say no, all right, then that's a deal breaker for me. But because you're talking like the deal is broken, but then you're kind of doubling back and saying like, unless, so that's what you really got to sort out.
That's actually a really good perspective. And that's why I like having someone else on to kind of dissect this stuff, because relationships are just complicated, and both things make a lot of sense. Like what I said and what you said, like I agree with you. And I think sometimes we try to like, well, like maybe I could fix it so I can make it work so it can be okay when it's really not okay. I may be done.
Who can say, man? Sometimes there's no coming back. I don't know.
No, that's true. Todd had a question. Do either of you have experience navigating through conflict within the family business? I'm not sure what if you're still here, what you mean by that. I will say about a family business is something that is challenging, and you would really need to get things on paper, your ducks in a row, if you're going into business with family, because there's so many, I think, emotions involved, and there's so many oh, it's just Todd. Like Todd doesn't mind. Like there's either something made, right?
Todd doesn't. Clearly, Todd minds. He's on the internet texting questions to people, so clearly Todd does mind.
Oh, okay. So it says my oldest son and I are partners with my second son now. That's a lot. That's a lot of family there. A lot of close family too.
Without in as brief as you can, Todd, tell us this problem as literally as brief, like just he's doing this, he's doing that. What should I do? It might exceed what this show can do. Is there another question, Celeste? In the meantime, we come back to Todd when he's written it out.
No. One thing while he's writing it out, one thing I'll say is that whether we're talking about since we're on the business relationships, whether we're talking about a family business or your own business, because I know a lot of people starting businesses now, making sure you have all your ducks in order when you're starting it out, especially if it's something that's new, especially if it's something you've never done before. Because I know, like, I've been in business for about 5 years and I've learned so much along the way. So that's something that's going to be important. And you're 3 years in, so Todd is 3 years into this.
Here's one more challenge about Todd. We can't help until we know what the problem is. But here's one more thing about a family business. There's a way I like looking at it. There's your biological family and your logical family. Meaning your biological family is just who's related to you, right? Your sons are the sons you had. Whereas your logical family, let's say you're Todd, your best friend, right? No one made you be friends with that guy. You just picked him. So sometimes what an unspoken thing that makes family businesses harder is you say, like, if you wasn't my family, I wouldn't have done this with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go, like, if you think about most of us think about your relationship with your own mother. You go, like, lady, you're nuts. If you weren't my mother, I wouldn't be putting up with some of the things you say because you're nuts and you don't listen. You know what I mean? So she's your biological family versus your logical family.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's good. This was really good. That was my last question that I had. Do you have any, when you think about the both questions we had, both revolved around communication and being able to be open and understanding. Um, Sorry, let me just let Todd. So we have had a lot of discussions about family first and great communication is paramount. But when conflict arises, second son gets angry and goes silent. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like sometimes that's like, I'm taking my ball and going home, right? Like I'm not gonna, if there's conflict, I get angry and shut down. And meanwhile, the business doesn't close, right? It's the business. If it's, let's say, a dairy farm, say this milk's gonna go bad while you're pouting, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we're trying to resolve who's opening first shift tomorrow, but you're too busy pouting. Well,
Right.
that's the issue. So Todd, you got to ask yourself. He says, even though it's been discussed over and over, so you ask yourself, look, what would you do if he was just a non-family partner and he kept on shutting down when you're trying to solve something? I think you already know what you do. The issue here is, how do I hold somebody accountable that, that basically, if they were an employee or a coworker, I would sever the connection and or fire them or do something severe. But they wield the relationship in such a way where it's like, yeah, well, you can't fire your brother. I have the same problem disciplining I got teenage boys, and I try to have like allowances and stuff like that for them. Like, do this, do that, do this, and you get an allowance. But here's the problem. I say, look, man, if you were just an employee, I would just fired you a long time ago because you're terrible at this. You don't do what you're supposed to do. But you wield the fact that you kind of work for the family business, in this case, cleaning the bathroom once a week, right? So in the same way, it sounds like second son might be doing that. And you might have to figure out, there's a phrase, good fences make good neighbors. You might have to figure out, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to say, look, on the positive side, we'd like to chip in and have the family, I'm just making something up, pay for individual counseling. And you can have time off. I'm going to cover your morning shift so you can go to that. Okay, no, because that's what we need. That's what will move the business forward. On the other hand, Todd Jr., well, I guess I hope he's not Todd Jr. because he's the second. I mean, you skipped original Todd. Young second son. If you continue doing this, I mean, this doesn't work. As it stands, it doesn't work. If you tell me that we're going to go forward like this forever, then this business doesn't work. And we need to make a change because the problem here is how you deal with conflict. Yeah. But if you're willing to take X, Y, and Z steps, we're willing to stick with you. It's like an intervention, right?
Looks like you're on the right track. It says we are starting out with all three of us meeting with the counselor. That's good.
That's very good. And the hope is that the counselor, but you got to go in there and be direct, because I bet you everyone has the dynamic in the family of, don't set off second son, so you tiptoe around him like he's made of glass, which is actually a weird type of power to hand that to him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You hand him the power where, like, oh, everyone has to live in fear his anger. But again, what would you do if he was just some guy that worked there? You say, look, we need to make these donuts. The donuts need to be made by 6 a.m. every day. And if you get mad when we debate about the donuts and storm off and the donuts don't get made, we all go under, and that can't happen. That we all have to row, and we have to have systems in place. So you agree on it beforehand, but people need to stick to it. And if they don't, there has to be, when I say a consequence, not you punishing them like the dad, literally the consequence that you do to an equal man, where you say, yo, if Celeste continually said, Jeff, the show's tonight, and then I call in, she goes, oh, I canceled. I'd probably let that happen maybe one time. Then the next time I'll say, Celeste, I really like doing this with you, but if you can't hold to what we've agreed to, that I don't know if this is going to work. And then she would choose. But you can't like make the son. You can't make them, but you can lay out what you're willing to support and then what you're not willing to tolerate and not like enable anymore.
And even though Todd's talking about business, I think this holds true for relationships as well, in regards to sometimes the person will get angry, so we tiptoe around their emotions and their feelings because we don't want them to be upset. And so now we're swallowing our own like emotions, even though we're upset or we don't like the way things are being done in the relationship, just to make it okay for them.
Right. It's like, because he's the Tasmanian devil, you have to tiptoe around, but no, he's not. Like, that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, the bottom line is we have an objective. The objective, family first is an objective, and in some ways, you go, well, that's why we can't do anything. Well, how's that working out for your family?
Yeah.
Is it how's Thanksgiving now? Not that great.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, family first would be to hold them accountable and just say, look, I'd love you more as a son/brother if we didn't have to work together, because what I need out of a partner, a business partner, you seem unwilling or unable to provide.
Yep.
Right?
And so that's why the third party is important. So even though Todd happened to ask a family business question, all three of things kind of revolve around communication. And I know communication is one of the things that tends to cause relationships to dismantle. All relationships, really, not just romantic ones. I want you to leave us with some words around communication and how we can work on making it a more consistent, healthy thing that we're doing in our relationships.
Well, one thing I think is that you gotta sometimes you gotta negotiate your you gotta figure out your non-negotiables and then don't negotiate them. Right?
Yes. So sorry, I got excited. That's so good. Sorry.
You figure out what it is sometimes you're willing to do something. I've had issues in relationships, where the woman does something and I don't like it, and I tell her I don't like it, and then she continues to do it, and she and then sometimes I have to admit I've been like, well, you know what? It's not a deal breaker. I don't like it, but I'm gonna put up with it. I think everyone has some stuff like that in their relationship. Sometimes your husband leaves his dirty underwear around, and you just go, that's just him. And I'm the tidier of us, and I'm gonna pick up more laundry over the course of our life than he is, and that's just that. But then other times you'd be like, "Is this the 9th time you came home drunk at 5:30 in the morning and with lipstick on your collar?" I'm not tolerating that. I don't agree to put up with it, come what may. The idea that you always have to stick with everything forever or you failed is not true. Sometimes staying in the relationship is failing, and that. The way you would know that is if you've compromised your non-negotiables. That's how you would know. If you've compromised your non-negotiables, you're fucking up by staying together.
Yep.
And that's also true, Todd, for a family business.
Yep. Yo, those non-negotiables, a lot of people don't even know what they look like. And I think that's the start, especially, I guess, with the first question, the person who asked about staying. The second question, the person who asked about staying in a relationship, I think really thinking about that, your non-negotiables, your negotiables, what that looks like. The part about you used an example of leaving the dirty underwear on the floor, making sure that also you're checking in with yourself so that you're not reacting. Is it about the dirty underwear on the floor? Or is it about something else that you have to look at within yourself? Because you'll end up making it about the dirty underwear, then you get with Joe Schmo and you be like, dang, I could have been dealing with this dude with the dirty underwear, now I'm dealing with Joe Schmo.
Right. Well, so what happens, sometimes you find that things have a symbolic meaning. So they'll say, oh, you leave your dirty underwear on the floor, but I like a clean room. So that's like saying you don't care what I like. I'm like, well, that's not exactly what it's like. What it's really like is I don't notice that I'm doing this because I'm the kind of person that gets preoccupied when I'm changing my underwear. That's what it's like. Yep. So, but people will make it symbolic and say, when you do this or do that, you're saying this or that. When you said dinner was going to be on the table and it doesn't, it's like you don't respect my time. It's like, yeah, but also cooking dinner is a little involved, and so sometimes it'd be late.
But Jeff, this is the last thing. Sorry, I know I keep trying to go, but you be saying some dope stuff. Where did that come from for you to say, for somebody to think that way about this means you don't respect me or respect my time? Where do you think that comes from the other party that's feeling that way? Because it's a feeling where that triggered something in them.
Right. Well, oftentimes you'll find that they'll say, oh, well, when I was young, a dog did something to me. And ever since then, I was scared and I hated dogs. And then when you brought a dog around, it's like saying that you want me to be scared. And it's like, but look at all that I would have to know that. I don't know that. I assume that people like dogs. I love dogs. So it's like a lack. It's a lack of being able to understand that other people can't read your mind.
There you go.
Right. And then you also have to give a lot of grace too, because even if I know that yeah, I always had to leave. I was like the Cinderella of my family, and I always had to clean up everybody's underwear. So when you leave your underwear, it puts me back in that place. It's like, yo, I'm gonna try to do better. You got to keep mine at the same time. That's kind of unusual, and leaving your underwear around is kind of usual. So in that sense, I'm gonna try to accommodate it, but people need grace. Do you know what I mean? Some things are reasonable, like I don't want to get hit, and some things are a little outlandish, like whenever somebody eats with a spoon, and whenever someone eats with a fork and knife, it reminds me of this, and I'm triggered. Like, look, man, fork and knife is what we do, though.
Right. Unless you're from the hood like me, you eat with your hands.
I do it all. Let me tell you something. A beard, what they tell you all about, one of the worst betrayals a man with a beard can have, what triggers me, is I'll be walking around and I'll just have a whole something in my beard for 45 minutes, and nobody says, yo, Jeff, you have a whole ham hock in your beard. They just let you look dumb. I've talked to Halle Berry in that time, and then they say, no, Jeff, oh, you got something in your beard. I said, you was with me, you didn't say nothing? It's a betrayal. So Celeste, I need our communication to be where you tell me when there's detritus in my beard.
I got you. That's good communication in our relationship, Jeff. I got you.
Let's do it. And thank you for your communication.
Yes. Thank you for being here. You're amazing as always. Jeff will be back every single month. Don't forget, if you're listening to this and you want your questions answered on Fix Your Relationship with Jeff and Celeste, email me, DM me. I got you. Or you can just ask your question live. So thank you, my dear.
Let's do it. And I'm starting a business with Todd's son where he's MMA fighting. So putting that anger to use.
That's right. Bye.
See you later.
All right, y'all. So that was Fix Your Relationship with Jeff and Celeste. You'll find Jeff and me on monthly. A few people have emailed in questions. You can always email your questions in, write them online on my website, DM me your questions, or ask your questions on the show. Anybody who's been rocking with me for a while know how much I enjoy relationships. I enjoy talking about them. I enjoy breaking them down. I find that when our relationships are struggling, it feels like everything is struggling around us. So I really want people to get a handle on things and understand that you have a choice in the matter. It may feel like you don't have a choice, or you may feel compelled to stay because everybody else is in a relationship, but guess what? You don't have to stay. You have a choice, and you don't have to do it like the way everyone else is doing it. And that's why I always enjoy Jeff being on, because he makes that very clear in our talks. So love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, if you want to be on the show, have a show idea, email me, info@celestetherapist.com. And don't forget, you can check out the podcast, celestetherapist.com. This podcast will be up tonight. Fix Your Relationship with Jeff and Celeste. Love you guys, and I will talk to you later.
Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the Therapist. Let's go.